Welcome into another edition of the Pilgrimage Perspective. Today we have a first, actually talking about what it's like in Italy during this continued pandemic. Father Christopher Iwancio and Sam Ranke took a high school pilgrimage just a couple of weeks ago, and they talk about what it was like in Rome, Assisi, and Greccio. Was it any different? Was it actually a little bit better than what you'd expect a normal pilgrimage to be like? Less people, more time to enjoy all the things that the pilgrimage has to offer. All of that and much more coming up next on the Pilgrimage Perspective. And welcome into another edition of the Pilgrimage Perspective. I'm your host, Andy Trado. Today, you're very familiar with my guests. We have Father Christopher Iwancio and Sam Ranke. Thank you both for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. Today, we're talking about something you guys experienced about a month ago. It was an actual pilgrimage, which is crazy to talk about because we have been talking about anything but that in the last, I guess since the pandemic started. You guys were in Italy, Assisi and Rome to be more specific. And what was that experience like? I'll start with you, Father. What was the experience like? Because a lot of people are talking about, what it says on the news, and is there any difference or is it somewhat similar to that?
Yeah, I would say going into it, I was, when you have to get through the paperwork, getting through the airport and the testing, I was worried about all those particulars. And after I've been through it, it wasn't as the getting through the airport, getting through security and all that was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Okay. So I would say that the general fear I have about the paperwork, having a test and all this, it wasn't as complicated as I thought it was going to be. I would say being over in Italy compared to other times, you can see the numbers are down a little bit in terms of people visiting. Mm. But in some cases, it was easier to experience some things. I would say that, most of the businesses I enjoy frequently were open. I mean, I'd say other than maybe one or two places where we had to go in smaller numbers and smaller groups to get in some of the smaller chapels, there wasn't particularly any difficulties for our group. The businesses for the most part are all open. I would say it was nice that not having the huge crowds that I've experienced in past. It was nice not having just a different feel from the folks who saw us. They were generally really happy instead of being, other times I've been with people, sometimes you go to Italy at the end of the summer, people are tired. They're like, but people were really happy to see us and they were just more welcoming than usual. And obviously Italy is a very welcoming place and, yes. And especially in Assisi, but it was, the reception received, people were really excited to see us. And, that warmth and just that feeling of like things are returning was something that was really positive. And for me, it's, as someone who not only just leads a group, but also, I help chaperone other groups, it felt really good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. How about you, Sam? What was your experience like going or, the anticipation of going and then maybe actually getting there? Was any fears that you thought, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be?
Sure. Kind of like Father Chris said, it kind of exceeded my expectations, especially on the COVID line of things. Because as he kind of touched on, a lot of paperwork to fill out beforehand, a lot of double checking, see if stuff's open, making sure the pilgrims have the right documents as well as us. But I gotta say, yeah, it was surprisingly really easygoing. Everything seemed a lot more streamlined, which for Italy, that's a good thing because for those who haven't been over there, it's not very streamlined a lot of the time. So I don't know about you, Father Chris, but for me, I had the easiest time going from Italy to the US. Everything was marked properly, just getting into certain lines. Everything was very organized. So that was a very pleasant surprise. Warm reception when we got there and stuff. Probably within about 5 minutes of seeing my first person that I knew in Italy, or in Assisi, I should say, we were told right away, first American group back. So excited the Americans are back, which was really cool. And it was just awesome to see everyone that we have relationships built with over there. My biggest fear going over there was that especially my friend that works in the leather shop over there, Michelangelo's leather shop,
Mhm.
Michele. I went in there and I didn't see him at first, and I was scared. I thought, oh no, I hope he didn't lose his shop. Turned out to be his dad. I met him, and come to find out, his sister ended up opening a shop during COVID as well. So it was fantastic, not only seeing friends doing well there, but also doing better than we had seen them prior to COVID. So yeah, really neat experience, and what a blessing to be back there. Everything just felt very natural and normal again.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that, because Father John Sella went a couple weeks after both of you, and he kind of echoed the same thing. And he said that yes, there are some things that are different and not necessarily bad, but it was so interesting to be in a place like Rome where you guys have stood in line at St. Peter's for hours, and he said there was no line. And Father, you touched on that just a couple of minutes ago about how it was just a little different, but it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Is there an advantage to going right now?
I could say that one of the opportunities we had, we were able to have mass in a couple locations, which we normally don't, because some of some of the sites are so overbooked.
Mhm.
I would say we had a great mass in the crypt by the tomb of Saint Peter, and that's something, usually there's bishops and cardinals and big names taking up the spot and using that space for mass. And even being able to say mass there at the tomb of St. Francis, which, often, for our group, sometimes you have other groups that have priorities with when bishops and other dignitaries come through. So I
Mhm.
would say in some sense, we're able to have some spaces that we normally wouldn't get and to experience it without huge crowds. There's a moment when I was down in the crypts at the tomb of St. Francis. There was a moment where I was the only one person down there, and that was just an amazing quiet time. And other people started coming in, but it wasn't
Sure.
as noisy. It wasn't as just, we don't have as much distractions. And, it was really beautiful. It was a really wonderful experience. It was certainly more prayerful and certainly gave me an opportunity to see things I normally wouldn't see.
I think it's crazy that you said that because I've had that experience once as well. I've had it where I can't move in the crypt, and then I've had it where I'm the only one in there because it was just one of those unusually early hours I was able to go in. Um, Very powerful. And is the sort of the feel of the pilgrimage? Did you kind of build that in that this is a very special time to actually be here, as far as you don't have to worry about the crowds, and it's really it seemed like it was very much a your pilgrimage, and there were other people there, but how did you build that in? Is there anything you talked about how this is just something you'll never probably experience here ever again? Go to Sam for that.
Mostly like, yeah, to that effect there. Just the fact that a lot of these experiences, and I would point it out too, like going down and having mass there at St. Peter's grave there. That
Mhm.
was the first time I had ever done that. So that was really cool for me, and I think between the three of us leaders, we had probably said that at least once a day to the group, like, "Hey, this is a first for us. We know it's a first for you, so
Mhm.
get excited." And the other thing was too, a lot of the places that we went, um, not that there wasn't a personal touch before, but with some of those procedures in line and stuff, and there being less people, there was a lot more of it where you had people coming up to you for one-on-one stuff and build more relationships that way too. So yeah, it was very nice.
Was there a place, because again, it had been at least a year, probably plus, since you guys have been back. Father, was a place that you visited for the first time in that long? Was there a place that you felt like you kind of got a breath of fresh air because you were able to go there?
Again, I have to go back to the tomb of Saint Francis. That was for me the moment, just because I remember a year ago, on the feast of Saint Francis, our school, put together some prayers and we sent it to a family in Assisi and they prayed there at the tomb for us. And just to be back at that spot, just to be back, it has a moment like you're back home again. I think I'd say that. And also, you know, one of the places, obviously a lot of people stay at the Casa Papa Giovanni,
Hmm.
and to see the staff again, to see Rita and just to see her big smile, and also just be able to spend quiet time on that roof. I mean, that's for me, just being able to spend some time up there in the middle of the day when we have a little break, it's a sacred moment, and it's something that in the busyness and after all these Zoom calls and after all these things virtually, it's nice to do something in person for a change.
Absolutely.
And I think that's it's real just fresh of fresh air. And I think the other thing for me was the relief of just being able to do something where everyone was able to go through this whole experience, everyone stayed COVID free. It just it gave me a real sense of hope for other things that I do in California and other programs. It just feels like things are returning. And even in the midst of obviously we were over there, that some of the numbers were chopping up, but because we took the precautions, because we were cautious, that we were able to do some of the things we enjoy doing. And yeah, we may have to wear a mask, we may have to do a couple other things, but it means we can enjoy the things we love doing.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned wearing the mask. Sam, did that hinder your experience at all? Obviously, you would rather go without it, as I would think everybody would. But having to wear that, day in and day out, how did that feel?
Yeah, so I will admit it was weird the first few days I had it on. I started all the COVID stuff living out in Seattle, where they had a lot of different mandates, a lot of the mask stuff. And then I moved back to Wisconsin a few months ago, where there's not quite as many mandates like that. Didn't wear a mask for a while. So it was weird getting it back on at first. But really, it wasn't that bad. And I mean, the worst it might have been was when you're out in the sun, walking from A to B to C. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. And with there being less people there too, they're a little bit more lax on the rules, not in an irresponsible way, but they aren't sitting there slapping your hands with rulers if you're a little crowded in a space or not. But all in all, I would say it didn't really even affect the trip at all. It was something I didn't notice until we started getting the test to return home.
Yeah, and I'd say the biggest challenge was just wearing on the flight. And that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that was the hardest part. Other than that, there were times where we didn't have to wear it. There were times where, because of the regulations at that time, we didn't, it's not like we're wearing a mask from 7 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. There are moments where you don't have to, because, one of the things that is, good about our programming is, we do spend some time outside. It's not just, we're not spending time just in the church crowded in there.
Right.
There are times we do eat outside. And, I mean, I think that's something that's, I will say about Italy, that compared to like the United States, we're not used to eating outside. Where Italy, it's just a natural thing. So, it was kind of interesting. And of all these periods of times, now people are discovering eating outside, and it's like Italy, it's just a way of life.
Right. Right. How did you guys, I should have mentioned this before, you guys went with Roger Bacon High School. How did the high schoolers feel about this? What was their reaction to just the pilgrimage in general? I mean, out of the other pilgrimages you have done, was there any difference from that one to this one?
I mean, besides the different protocols, really not much of a difference, at least from what I could see.
Yeah.
The kids in the group and the chaperones too were very, very mature about it all. I think the biggest hiccups we ever had as far as adjustments to COVID or stuff like that would just be here and there. A student would maybe forget their mask in their rooms, but we made sure we had extra paper masks with us at all times. So it really wasn't a big problem at all. No, but yeah, I don't know, Father Christopher, if you think at all, but I don't think it hindered the trip for us. And I think I could speak for the group in saying that too. They had very positive thoughts on the trip once it wrapped up too.
Yeah, and I'd say that the adults and the kids did an excellent job following the mandates and following the guidelines. They did a really good job. I mean, obviously different parts of the country are used to different experiences, have different rules and regulations and guidelines for the stuff, but they did a good job, just kind of like, hey, we're just going to do it because we know we can do this. I would say it seemed like for me, they were very grateful to be able to finally go.
Yeah.
And I think, their trip had gotten the trip had gotten moved. And I think it's one of the challenges. I don't say a challenge. I think for groups to, just being a little flexible and being willing to roll up your sleeves and do a few extra, being willing to, put in some extra guardrails. I mean, the school did, the Franciscan Pilgrimage Program, we put in some guidelines that are over and above what the CDC asked at that particular time. And the school even put in more. And because of that, it made it possible. And I think, for other groups that are thinking, it's not bad to have an extra level of protection and not to be, then you have a little more security in things. And I think that's I think that's the key is, being flexible, knowing that the mandates and the guidelines will change from time to time, but also, if the state, they were flexible enough to move the date. They knew that, if things aren't going to work out this time, then we'll just move it the next time. And I think that flexibility, for groups who are planning, I'd say, aim for a trip. And if you have to move your dates, move it, have a backup date, but don't cancel. And I think that's the real challenge there, is not just to say no, because I think, provides you're taking away opportunities for these kids who really enjoy and want to go.
Right.
So, you just have to be flexible. We just have to be really flexible and be willing to roll up your sleeves and follow a couple extra guidelines. And I think that would make for a great trip.
And so to piggyback off that flexibility real quick, I meant to bring it up earlier. I found too, over the course of the pilgrimage, that a lot of the Italians were very flexible with us as well. There were some places that were stricter with their rules than others. But whether they were strict or not strict about if we went in and the space was too small for our group or something, they would go and find us a different space and find us a way to be comfortable in that space and everything. So that was a huge part of it too, was how flexible a lot of the Italian locals were, and really helping improve the group there.
And I think it's something that probably goes without saying, because it's just a part of our protocol. And Sam, you can speak to this as well. FPP has done an exceptional job at making sure the accommodations are correct and everyone feels safe. From what I've experienced, we have really put in place, okay, you need a negative COVID, or you need a COVID test before you get back to the States. We've set that up pretty well. Was that pretty seamless from start to finish?
Oh, very, yeah. I mean, it starts from all the office pre-prep that's done here in Franklin, Wisconsin, with our awesome office staff. Just getting all that paperwork ready to go, answering questions that the group may have had beforehand, making sure that then the days leading up to that trip, everything is still lined up and that the leaders are aware of what they're doing. But then, like I said, once we get over there, Father Christopher and I, and also Brother Tom Barton, who was with us, we had all been rehearsed on the different guidelines, getting updates as they roll in. And then since we have the relationships that we have over there in Assisi, which I think sets us apart from a lot of the other different tour or pilgrimage groups out there, is we have those relationships that, and we've had them for years, some decades, depending on the staff member. Right. So Sister Nancy, who works with us, she was able to get in touch with one of the pharmacies and got us all connected. So on our last day of the trip, we just brought the group over in 2 different groups, got testing done at the pharmacy right down the street from our pension, and it was very seamless. Go in, swipe a credit card to pay for the first half of the test. The pharmacist just went back there, conducted them, bang, done like that. They were the rapid test, so they had the results in, what was it, Father Christopher, 20 minutes?
Yeah,
it was very quick and very friendly.
And I'd say that's one of the things that was really, it was really good to be able to do it in a place like Assisi,
Right.
Because the way we were able to set it up, we took smaller groups. You had the 2 big groups, and then we started cycling them through, and it just was because of those relationships. This is not a cattle call for this. The pharmacist knew Sister Nancy, I know exactly what we need to do. We need to do this, and it was very easy, and for a small city like Assisi, it's nice to be able to have what you need in a small city like that. We're not scouring around trying we're going to be able to get it here. Are we going to get our results back? I mean, that's the thing, even just, will I get my results back in time? We know that we'll get the results back in time because we know the people.
Right.
They know ahead of time that we're coming, so we can work with their schedule. Our flexible schedule is enough that if they want to go a little later or they want to go earlier, we can move things around. And we did to make things work. Like that was the day they went to the Basilica. We were able to shift the schedule around just to make sure that everyone could get tested. They had enough time that the results would be good all the way home. You know, the results basically would still be good for even if a plane got, even if they got even if they missed their connection, they're it's still good. It's still good because we were able to make that work. And that's just, with great staff, the great connections over there. It just makes it a lot easier to deal with.
Yeah, I think in just when talking with you guys, I mean, I feel I'm unfortunately not going anytime soon, but I just feel better about if I would go. If John would have me go over there for whatever reason, it seems like the protocols that not only FPP has in place, but also you guys just as staff members, it seems like it's very seamless and very well thought out. And, obviously things have changed a little bit with, and this is being recorded on September 1st, because as we know, day to day things can change. And things have been they're a little bit different with vaccinated versus unvaccinated now. But it seems like if people want to go, there should really be no reason for them to cancel. If one of their concerns is protocol and safety and things like that. Obviously, everyone's different, but if people are worried about the process, it seems like FPP has a pretty good process now, and that's something to be proud of. And John and Nancy and Janelle and Sam and yourself, Christopher, I think it's a great thing to be a part of because of how well it's working out. And I hope that we send more pilgrimages in 2022 from what John has talked about is packed even more. So I'm hoping this is just a blip and we can get back to the way things always have been.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that, this is a good time to go because it's quiet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
It's really, really quiet. And, there's a couple, people I follow on Instagram who are in the CZ and, in Rome who work there. And, I'm following them to kind of see what's going on. And they're like, this is great. They're showing the empty streets of CZ in Rome. I'm like, I'm very thankful we went when we did. And,
Mm-hmm.
if I were to give an opportunity, I'd go in a heartbeat, and then again, it's one of those things, with the opportunity of having the vaccines now, I think that's, we will have these moments where we'll be up and down, but I don't think we're going to have the experience that we had a year ago. I mean, I think we're able to do things a little bit differently. I mean, there's a reason why, at least here in California, the businesses are still open. And there's a reason why we're in school right now in person. We can now start doing things more safely because of the testing has improved, people are getting vaccinated, and yeah, there'll be things where, we may have to get booster shots. We may have to do mask wearing a little bit here and there, but I think just being flexible and being willing to roll up your sleeves and follow a couple of guidelines means that we can do these things that we enjoy.
Right. No, I completely agree. I hope that you guys are able to go because it's my understanding you're planning on going in December with another high school. Is that correct?
Correct.
Hopefully, that things can calm down or status quo will stay the same. Because I'd love to have another conversation with you guys. Only we'll be talking about pilgrimage during Christmas rather than the pilgrimage during it'll still be a pandemic, but the tone of the conversation will be different. But I appreciate your time today. I think what we talked about was awesome, just for you guys to share your experience and to kind of maybe read a little bit beyond the headlines, because those can be very scary a lot of times.
Yeah, and it's funny they mention that because, even just the headlines that came out just within the last couple of days, everyone's like, oh, Europe's closing and everything. I'm like, no, it's not. It's just, EU has some guidelines that they want to set, but it's up to each individual country to set what the requirements are going to be. And Italy's, Italy has been very good with setting guidelines and being very clear what the expectations are, and they're not changing it overnight. And so I think the thing is there to don't just read the headlines. Don't just read the headlines. Obviously the email I sent Father John last night was like, here are the guidelines that that I saw, and it, someone who helps lead pilgrimages in Rome, and it's, it's like people are scaring each other, and it's like we need to stop scaring each other. We need to, obviously follow the guidelines, but let's follow the guidelines and do some living.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about in this primarily, is just that, you guys had a wonderful experience, and a lot of people are having wonderful experiences. And I get the fear. And, like you said, you have to roll up your sleeves, be a little bit careful, and, be willing to just be safe. But there's no reason for people not to get to enjoy a time like this, especially since it's very rare that you'll never get people inside Assisi in Rome, or you're not going to have a line outside of St. Peter. So I'm hoping our conversation today will help encourage people to go and experience that, because again, this is a once in a lifetime thing, both positive and negative. So I think people should take advantage of it. So that'll do it for me today. I appreciate your time, Father Christopher and Sam. I hope to talk to you guys soon, and hopefully we will be breaking bread in not too long. So Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. This has been the Pilgrimage Perspective right here on YouTube and www.franciscanpilgrimages.com.